Greetings, mortals! Welcome to another session of the Infernal Court in Musical Hell. I'm Diva, your judge, jury, executioner, and long-suffering partner. I'm not a big fan of jukebox musicals in general, but I find that the ones that are biographical tend to work better than most. Mainly because the music is already intimately connected with the characters. They wrote and/or performed it after all, so it makes a fitting underscore for their personal history. And showbiz drama, though it can lean towards the cliched, does make for a good story. But there's one artist whose life has all the makings of a great biomusical, yet attempts to do so have come up short. Cole Porter. The witty songsmith has been the subject of not one, but two disappointing musical retrospectives, 1946's Hayes Office-friendly Night and Day, and our next offender, the 2004 film DeLovely. Porter's life and personality make him a naturally fascinating subject of study. His sophisticated, urbane, and frequently difficult manners, his successful career marked by personal drama and hampered by a tragic accident, and the odd coexistence of his long-term marriage with an ongoing string of gay love affairs. And in between he wrote a shit ton of really good songs, which makes him a natural fit for a biomusical. All of which explains why Jay Cox's screenplay was in development well before the 21st century musical renaissance really got going, even though it didn't see the light of day until 2004. Unfortunately, the results were not worth the wait.
This is one of those avant-garde things, is it?
Oh, you only wish it was that interesting. Let's examine the case of DeLovely. We begin at the ending with the elderly Cole Porter alone at his piano. Suddenly, a wild Jonathan Pryce appears.
That sounded lovely.
I hate funeral music. Though under the circumstances, I suppose I should say my prayers.
Why start now?
It quickly becomes obvious that Cole is either dead or dying, and Pryce's character Gabe is really, well, you can probably guess. The basic concept of the film is that Porter's life is flashing before his eyes in the form of a stage play accompanied by his song catalog.
It's your life. Your music will be our guide.
It's a neat concept, and I wish I didn't have to put it on the sin count, but they don't really do anything with this framing device. Jelly's Last Jam was another musical about an artist on the point of death looking back on his life, but there the retrospective served to force Jelly Roll Morton to confront his heritage and internalized racism. The elder Cole Porter doesn't seem to get anything out of watching his younger self. There are a few unpleasant scenes to go through, but there are no revelations, no difficult truths he has to deal with, or self-deceptions he is forced to relinquish. The theatrical conceit ends up being a pointless gimmick and an intrusion on the action. What little there is. The assembled players in Cole's life come on stage with the opening number Anything Goes. A fitting theme for Porter's approach to life, but it ends up being sin number 2 because the song muddles the older Porter's running commentary and vice versa. As a result, one of his most cheerful songs ends up feeling lifeless.
Ellen, Ruby gave me my start. My whole life, all this muppy woolly from Yale.
Cole calls a halt to the number when his wife Linda takes a verse, and Gabe agrees that it's a bit early in the game to be introducing backdoors and love affairs. Linda, for her own part, isn't too enthusiastic about reliving her personal history with Cole, but Gabe reassures her.
Have you ever seen a musical without a happy ending?
Oh, Vita, say,
take my hand, I'll lead you to salvation.
How many can I kill, Chino? How many? And still have one bullet left for me.
my God, why have you forgotten me?
Yeah, I'm not exactly on board with your logic there, Gaby. Gabe, who is serving as kind of a director for this show within a show, takes the action back to Paris, where Linda Lee Thomas first sees Cole Porter as he and his friend Gerald Murphy are livening up a stuffy society party with Well Did Ya Eva. Brr, at long last love flashbacks.
I have heard among this clan you are called the Forgotten Man.
Well,
Did you ever? Huh? What a swell party this is.
2 items worth noting. First, Kevin Kline is deliberately singing below his level in this movie to reflect the real Cole Porter's rather mediocre vocal abilities. It's a nice nuance to the character portrait. Second, the gentleman playing Gerald and displaying a surprisingly pleasant tonal quality is renowned character actor Kevin McNally, best known as Gibbs in the Pirates of the Caribbean series and last seen in this court getting strangled by Gerard Butler. I think somebody was jealous. Cole and Linda hit it off, and before you know it, he's serenading her at conveniently placed pianos.
You be so easy to love.
Oh, Christ, that cue's as loud as my whistle.
I'm going to have to agree with old Cole on this one. Sin number 3 is how terribly on the nose a lot of the action is. Linda's dialogue in particular feels like it was written to provide sound clips for the trailer.
A dazzling gift and a life to go with it. What could you possibly be afraid of?
You don't have to love me the way that I love you, Cole.
Just love me. Irving Berlin believes in your talent. I don't want to go home. I don't even feel like we have a home.
Cole and Linda eventually agree to get married, and Cole's propensity to bat for the other team doesn't bother Linda in the slightest. See, her ex-husband is something of an abusive ass, so a man who treats her like a human being is a step up the ladder regardless of his extracurriculars. So they wed and settle in Venice and have a fabulous time until Linda decides Cole needs to do more with his music than entertain at high society parties, and she brings in Irving Berlin for an assist.
You know, Linda's told me and Ellen so much about you, she's left out the most important stuff.
What would that be?
Your songs.
So the established idol has met the up-and-coming talent, after which there's more singing.
That's why I ask the Lord in heaven above.
And more parties.
We're all alone, no chaperone, can't get another.
All of which is very pretty to look at and listen to, but where is it all going? I feel like this film doesn't have much of a direction. It's just a series of this happened and this happened and this happened. Cole meets Irving Berlin, he gets his first big break, he's reluctant because he doubts himself, and also he doesn't want to leave his hot Russian ballet dancer on the side, etc., etc. There's not much dramatic arc to it, and it doesn't help that every time it feels like we're getting near to a revelation or a conflict, a song breaks out, usually involving several characters in a fancy house sitting around a piano together. Seriously, if this movie had any more scenes of people in a drawing room listening to music, a Jane Austen novel would break out. And because the narrative is so unfocused, the songs tend to be as well. Let's Do It, Let's Fall in Love underscores Porter's first big Broadway triumph as we go through the rehearsals and premiere of the musical Paris, but there's no energy to the montage. There's no sense of the thrill of creation or the joy of success. It's just Alanis Morissette performing a song, rather than the ovation-inspiring showstopper that it should be for the purposes of this movie. On the subject of Alanis Morissette, let's discuss sin number 5, the movie's overabundance of guest stars. A lot of people were brought into this film for the sole purpose of bringing life to Cole Porter's songs, and sometimes it does work. John Barrowman gives a fantastic rendition of Night and Day, and Carolyn O'Connor makes for a remarkably good Ethel Merman. But at other times, the songs seem to exist just so the movie has an excuse to say, "Look, everybody, it's Elvis Costello! Check it out, we've got Sheryl Crow in our film, and Natalie Cole, too!" It's not a movie so much as it is an extended tribute album with visuals. Linda gives Cole a custom-made cigarette case to commemorate his first premiere, a tradition that continues as he churns out hit after hit. This leads to the success puts a crimp in the marriage part of the movie, as Linda worries that Cole's getting a little too indiscreet with his trysts, and keeps trying to get him to move out to Hollywood to make music for the movies. Complicating this matter is the fact that the Porters have decided they want children, mostly because their friends the Murphys have children.
Well, champagne, or how do you want to play this? For comedy, tragedy?
which the movie promptly forgets about until Linda misses one of Cole's premieres because she's had a miscarriage. See what I mean about the narrative being unfocused? The miscarriage is what finally convinces Cole to head out west, where he signs with MGM and where Louis B. Mayer wastes no time being an idiot producer.
When you write funny songs, I want funny, not clever funny. Could you do that for me?
Be a clown, be a clown. All the world loves a clown.
The way the songs are done in this movie is a bit erratic. Almost all of them are diegetic, but every now and then you get a piece like this one, where everyone acts like the rejects from the Donald O'Connor auditions for 4 minutes. Cole enjoys the selling out to Hollywood life, but Linda is less than thrilled, mostly because being less than thrilled is her role in the film.
Hollywood was your idea, not mine. You're acting like it's the worst place on earth.
I had thought that the change of weather might be good for us both, but I had no idea how hot the climate would really be.
And that brings us to sin number 6. How does this movie manage to make the extraordinary relationship between its two main characters so commonplace? The beats into Lovely could have been cut and pasted from a dozen other biopics. The artist and his wife first meet and have instant chemistry. Their early life is happy together as she encourages him to his first big successes. Then the allure of fame gets in the way and they fight and separate and so on. It's a trite way of telling the story of a very peculiar partnership. Cole and Linda Porter's union was, on its most basic level, a marriage of convenience. Being a divorced woman was scandalous in the early 20th century, and being a gay man was even more so, so they provided each other with a level of security and social respectability they wouldn't have been able to obtain otherwise. And the fascinating thing was that, for the most part, they made it work. The marriage wasn't just a front, they did care for each other, even if it wasn't in the way a husband and wife are usually expected to do. I'd have much rather seen a movie about that relationship rather than the paint-by-numbers stuff we get here. I'm also frustrated by the way the movie presents Cole and Linda as devoted to each other almost exclusively, with Linda acting as Cole's sole musical inspiration and his homosexuality being little more than an odd quirk their marriage has to cope with. While it's true that Linda was more than just a beard to him, Cole Porter did have significant relationships with men as well, and if the amount of coded language in his lyrics is any indication, that did influence his writing. For her own part, Linda also had her share of extramarital activity, and there's some ambiguity about whether her miscarriage was fathered by Cole or someone else. I'm not saying that the Porters' marriage wasn't a significant influence on their lives, or that a movie based primarily on that relationship couldn't work. But to dismiss the influence of Cole Porter's sexual identity on his personal and creative lives is fundamentally dishonest, not to mention more than a little heteronormative. The combination of Cole's increasingly indiscreet indiscretions and a worrisome case of ominous cough of impending doom caused Linda to run off to Phoenix for her health. Cole doesn't seem to mind, as it gives him more time to pick up rent boys in a cleverly filmed sequence set fittingly, if a bit obviously, to Love for Sale.
Let the poets pipe of love in their childish way. I know every type of love better far than they.
One such liaison gets photographed for blackmail purposes, which proves to be the last straw for Linda as she storms off to Paris. We are well and truly in the narrative low point now. The Murphys lose a child to tuberculosis, Linda's ominous cough becomes steadily worse, and Cole has a tragic accident. The accident brings Linda back to the States, mostly so she can swim into focus as Cole regains consciousness. Yes, we are officially in the maudlin crisis point. Things get really melodramatic as Linda haughtily talks down the doctor who recommends amputation for Cole's damaged leg, and the couple head to Massachusetts for his long and difficult recovery.
God, I can't work the pedals.
But the actual recovery, which might have been interesting or at least worth a montage, barely rates an offhand comment.
And what did it take to finally work the pedals?
Oh, a few years. A pharmacopoeia of pills, a reservoir of scotch, and 20 more operations.
But of course Cole must write again because he hasn't written his most famous musical, Kiss Me Kate, yet. By this time, he's aware that Linda has terminal lung cancer, and we get the juxtaposition of the magnum opus coming to life as the muse slips away. Which culminates in Cole treating her to a private sneak peek of the show's great ballad, So in Love.
So taunt me and hurt me, deceive me.
I'm sorry, I know it's hardly the most dramatic inaccuracy in this movie, but it's bugging the crap out of me, so sin number 8. At no point in the stage version of Kiss Me Kate is So in Love a duet. It's performed twice in the show, both times as a solo, and both times in the backstage setting rather than the play within a play, which makes sense since it would be a pretty inappropriate sentiment for the main characters of Taming of the Shrew. It's a little thing, but it's still pulling me out of what the movie clearly expects to be its big tearjerker moment. The musical is, of course, a success, and Cole gets his final commemorative cigarette case from Linda, which, given that she's dying from a lifetime of chain smoking, has become a really ironic gift choice. And with that, the time has come for Linda to make her dramatic exit.
Every time we say goodbye, I die a little.
Now, in real life, Porter continued writing after Linda's death until his never-quite-healed leg was amputated 4 years later, but in this movie, he just kind of peters out after she's gone, and the story arc follows suit. Basically, Cole alienates everyone in his life by singing at them until they depart in frustration, which is a pretty accurate metaphor for the experience of watching this movie.
Cole, it's done. It's done.
But Gabe has promised a happy ending, and he's here to deliver with a welcome to the afterlife rendition of Blow Gabriel Blow.
So blow, Gabriel, blow. Blow, Gabriel, blow. Blow, Gabriel, blow.
And, is it over? Can we go now? No, really, the big upbeat finale meant the movie is over, right? Why are we still hanging around? Oh, look, someone get him a light to go into or something, please! Okay, Linda's shown up, Cole's restored to his prime, happy post-mortem reunion, just end already! I've seen a lot of musicals that worked better on stage than on screen, but this has to be the first one that was a movie first. DeLovely has a lot of potential in it that I think would have been realized better in a theatrical setting. The play within a play framing device, the musical numbers, even the more melodramatic moments would have worked better in a big hall. Kevin Kline and Ashley Judd give fine performances, but the script never allows them to fully explore the nuances of their characters or their relationship. Therefore, the Court of Musical Hell orders the following punishments. For the overabundance of guest stars, we condemn the casting department to be ignored at their own birthday parties. For generally ignoring a significant portion of Cole Porter's personal life, Jay Cox is condemned to always get half of his order from the drive-thru window. Finally, for a story that can't get a clear picture on what it wants to say, Irwin Winkler is condemned to an eternal exam with the world's worst optometrist. Better one or better two? So let it be recorded. This session of the Infernal Court in musical hell is now adjourned.